So I did my research over the Monet ball and how it affected the human body once it entered the body, and like what kind of damage it did to the body. So the Monet ball was actually developed by a French army officer named Claude Etienne Monet. So the Monet ball was named after him because he created it, and it was first used in America during the Civil War. Both the Confederate and Union armies used the Monet ball during warfare. So it was used in muzzle loading rifles, according to History.com. So the Monet ball, it had a cylindrical shape and a conical point at the top. It was made of soft lead and it had a hollow base with like ridges at the bottom. It was a .58 caliber, and it expanded once it was fired. Um, so Also, according to History.com, the effective range of the Monet ball was 200 to 250 yards. Um, and so it was easily loaded compared to the earlier ways that they loaded rifles, like during the Revolutionary War. Um, it had a longer range accuracy, so that meant that they didn't have to fight the Civil War like they did the Revolutionary War, so they didn't have to stand in lines to just shoot at each other right there. They could actually be in longer distance from each other and actually like have more of a what we would think as of wars today. Have more of those tactics instead of standing in rows and just picking each other off. They could hide and things like that. So it led to a different way that the war was fought. The Monet ball also caused very staggering death tolls because of the impact it had on the human body. So 200,000 people were killed from the Monet ball, and 400,000 were wounded. And then, according to the Gettysburg compiler, the Monet ball had two killing zones. The first one was in the first 100 yards. The second one was in the 200 to 350 yards. It had catastrophic impacts. So I also read that frontal assaults could lead to basically suicide because of just the huge impact that the Monet ball had. So, like, shooting someone from the front could also cause the person shooting to die, which is just crazy to think about. So, the impact that it had, it would, once it entered the body, it expanded and it would shatter, or it not expanded, it flattened upon hitting the target, and it would shatter bones, destroy tissue, and cause many numbers of amputations. And that actually, the amputations led to, it kind of helped doctors learn and grow because they had to perform so many operations during the Civil War. The healthcare system and doctors, the medical, the medical field changed and grew a lot because so many amputations were performed that they learned from their mistakes, and the medical field grew in that way. So the reason that there were so many amputations was because the Monet ball, when it was going through the air or once it touched a uniform, things like that, it would carry that foreign matter with it and take it into the human body, causing infection. So it was responsible for 3 out of 4 operations in hospitals. And it did lead to the evolution of medical care. So that was one good thing that came out of the Civil War, was doctors learned from all the amputations they performed. And then according to the National Library of Medicine, the Civil War was the bloodiest war in American history. More Americans died than any other wars combined. So after amputations, many of the wound infections cause death. So if soldiers didn't die from just the initial impact of the Minay ball, then or died during like operations, then they died from wound infection. That is because doctors at this time didn't know about using sterile tools, and they didn't really know about germs and things like that. So they didn't sterilize tools, they didn't clean wounds like they were supposed to, just because they didn't know. And so that is one good thing they learned after they would do operations, and then they would get wounds. They started figuring out this is how we need to fix it, by sterilizing and cleaning the wound, getting all the germs. So they learned a lot from that. And then, so these are just some statistics. There were 175,000 extremity wounds, and then 30,000 underwent amputation, with a 26.3 mortality rate. And so, another like kind of fun fact, anesthesia was first used during the Civil War for amputations, and doctors actually used chloroform because it was the quickest way to knock someone out, and just the most efficient. Also non-flammable, so it was just suited more for the war. And so the numbers for the Civil War death tolls were devastating, and it is a lot of that due to the Minay ball and the number of amputations that were caused because of it. And so it was a very devastating war, and the numbers are so devastating. But the medical field did change a lot after the Civil War because doctors learned a lot, and so it really did shape the medical field and change it into what it is today.